Anxiety quotes that's going to stop you from overthinking. So, in this podcast, I'm going to go over 5 anxiety quotes that I absolutely love that's going to help you to stop overthinking and help you to start taking actions that you should have been taking weeks, months, or even years ago. And what I want you to do is, I want you to actually type these quotes in your phone so that way you always have them with you. These are powerful quotes that I use in my sessions, but also quotes that I use for myself to ever help me if I find myself procrastinating or even feeling stuck. So, let's jump right into it. The first one is from Mark Twain, and he says, worrying is like paying a debt you don't owe. What I love about this is that it frees my mind from thinking that this is something that I have to do, something that I have to give all my attention to. And it's the same thing for you. Because think about it. Imagine if you had an extra mortgage that you were paying that you didn't have to pay. What would you do with all that extra money that you were investing into this imaginary second mortgage? Well, you probably invested in stocks or something else, right? Like you would not be wasting that money, right? It's the same thing with our attention. It's the same thing with our focus. It is the exact same thing with our time. Because if you spend the whole entire time trying to get rid of anxiety, think about how much time you could have been spent doing the thing that you're so anxious about. And that's what I love about the framework that I use, where I talk a lot about acceptance. Because a lot of people come to therapy because they're trying to make anxiety go away. And if we spend all of our day trying to make anxiety go away, what time are we spending living life? Well, probably not much. A lot of people sometimes are looking for this magic potion or this magic elixir or this silver bullet, if you will. And I'm not telling you that that does not exist, but while we're finding it, let's go out and have some fun. Let's go out and do things that are meaningful. And there's so many examples that I can go into that I'm actually going to pull back because I don't want to jump into that too deep. I want to make sure that I give you guys the rest of these quotes. And at the end, I'm actually going to give you a bonus quote because initially I was going to give you guys 5 and I've already given you one. But I decided, you know what? Let me give them a bonus one that I deeply, deeply care about. All right, this second one is from an old philosopher. His name is Seneca. He's a famous one. You probably heard of him. If you haven't, I would tell you to go to Google and type in top 50 quotes from philosopher Seneca. And he says, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. All right, I'm gonna say that again. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. What I love about this is that it puts poor in terms of relatedness, if you want to call it that. I think I'm saying that the right way. Basically, just like people say that expensive is all relative, being poor is all relative as well. And it helps to take some of that pressure off whenever we find ourselves being conditional with our happiness, being conditional with our confidence, being conditional with our sense of fulfillment. It's almost along the lines of I'm only confident if I'm making money. I'm only happy if I'm in a relationship. I'm only doing well if I have more than everybody else that's around me, more than my friends and more than my family. And when we're in this state, it leaves us potentially, right? It leaves us open, right? Possibly open to not having enough, to feeling like we're not enough, even though we look up and we have everything that 99% of the people on the earth would love to have. Also, what I love about this quote is that it actually comes from this thing called the backwards law. All right. And I would tell you to Google that as well. I'm telling you guys to Google a lot of stuff. I still want you to stay focused on this podcast. So this episode may be something that you listen to twice or multiple times. And side note, many of my podcasts are designed to stand the test of time, meaning there are things that are shot months ago, years ago, that are still applicable today. So this one thing I would tell you to Google is the backwards law. The backwards law basically states the more you pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied you become, as pursuing something only reinforces the fact that you lack it in the first place. And this is by a guy named Alan Watts. Okay, so the more you pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied you become, as pursuing something only reinforces the fact that you lack it in the first place. And I think that's exactly what Seneca is saying here. It is not a man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. This is all about acceptance. And when we talk about acceptance, it doesn't mean that we are putting up with things or we're having low standards. It's us being able to find beauty in this moment as we go along trying to find the next moment. And we're not trying to find the next moment because this moment isn't good enough. We find the next moment because values are lifelong things, okay? You can never say I have too much family and I need to stop, or that I've accomplished wealth and I need to stop, or that I've accomplished caring, or loyalty. These are things that you can constantly keep going till the end of time. And it's the same thing here. Next, and this is a classic one, it's by Mark Twain again. And he says, I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which have never happened. This is a classic one because there's so many studies that say that up to 80% of the negative things that we're thinking about never actually happens. Sometimes I even have some of my clients do this, and I would tell you to do this as well, where you write down all the negative thoughts or all the bad things that you think could happen. And then in a month, in a year, look back at that list, even in a day, if you will, or a week. Look back at that list and see how many of these things actually came true. Right now, believe it or not, my wife is going through this because she's applying to a new job, right? It's a promotion, if you will. And she's having these thoughts, what if I don't get it, right? Because right now, she's not too happy with the job that she currently has. But if she gets this job, not only will it be a boost in pay, but it will actually help her with her own sanity because her job is very stressful. And I'm asking her and I'm talking to her and I'm, basically trying to get more insight. And she's telling me all these things that could go wrong. And I'm like, babe, you have never failed an interview yet. Every interview you've went to, you've gotten the job. So why would this be any different? So I'm pretty sure in a week, in 2 weeks, I'll probably come back to you guys and say, gosh, she got the job, right? And again, it's the same thing with you guys as well. Mark Twain hits the nail on the head. Again, he says, I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which have never happened. All right, so this next one's from a guy named Lou Holtz. He's a coach. If you're from South Carolina, you love him because he used to be a coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks. He also used to be a coach for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And he says, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. And that is like spot on to everything that I tell a client. It's not about the thoughts that you have, but again, it's how you hold it. It's not about the things that happens to you, but it's how you hold it. It's the meaning that you take away from it. Let's look at this really, really literally, okay? So I'm pretty sure each and every day for several hours a day, you're carrying your phone with you. But the thing is you're carrying it in your pocket or your purse. Now, if I ask you to take this phone and carry it with you, right? The same amount of time and everything that you normally do, but instead you carry it in your hand and you have your hand outstretched in front of you, right? As far as you can, almost as if you're trying to hand it to someone. If I asked you to go throughout the day holding the phone like this, would you be able to do it? The answer would be no. And I have some of my clients do this in my sessions. Sometimes they think that I'm hazing them. I'm like, no, I do this to all my clients. Where I have them write a thought on a simple note card, right? Something that I don't even know how much a note card weighs, right? It barely has weight. I ask them to hold it out in front of them after they wrote a negative thought or an unhelpful thought or an uncomfortable feeling. I have them write it down and then I have them hold it out in front of them. And as I'm asking them these questions, they're like, Coach, my arm's hurting, man. Are we about done? And I say, see, I got you. This is actually the true metaphor I want you to understand. It's the metaphor that it's not these thoughts or feelings that we have, but again, it's how we hold it that breaks us down or keeps us from being broken down. So the anxiety that you have, the thoughts that you have, if you can remind yourself that these are thoughts and these are feelings, and they're not something that has to define me, it's not something that has to consume and take over every ounce of my being, then you will be able to also carry these thoughts and these feelings in a way that allows you to still have a life beyond what you think and what you feel. This is what we call freedom. Freedom from your mind, freedom from your feelings, freedom from the things that happen to you. Because we all know it's not about how things happen to you or what happens to you. It's all about how you respond to them. All right, here's the fifth one, a very famous philosopher, one that you probably know, especially if you follow Greek philosophers. It's from Marcus Aurelius. And he says, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The mind, yes, that is something that you have power over. And in my sessions, I give you techniques to be able to put the mind in check. But things outside of the mind, things outside of you, these are things that we cannot control. There's a great book by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I read this with a book club that I did. And we talked about how there are things that you can control and can't control. And we need to focus on the two, right? The things that we have to have great identity. We have to have great awareness about the things that we can't control so we don't fall victim to those things. But then we also need to have great awareness about what we can control so we can work in that area of our life. Now, here's the beautiful thing. If you focus and work on the things that you can control, you do have an ability to influence the things that you can't control. So there may be people who at your job, they don't listen to you, they don't follow what you say. Maybe they're not the nicest people. I consider it's the same thing if you're in business, right? If you have your own business, when we're talking about clients and customers, if you learn the ability to persuade people, the ability to communicate to people, right? The ability to tell stories, you will have the ability to possibly get them to do what you need them to do. There's another great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Okay. And I can't remember the guy's name. He's Dale Carnegie. Yes, he's a great, very great author, very great public speaker back in his day. He has since passed, but he has wrote a great book again, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that will help you to be able to communicate to people in a way that allows them to do what you need them to do, right? And that's not a mean thing, because if you're a leader, if you're a communicator, if you're a teammate within a system or whatever, like you need people to be able to take actions based on what you say. And those are just some great books to help you to do that. Now, those are the 5 quotes that I wanted to tell you in regards to anxiety. But here's the bonus one that I really wanted to give you. And this is it's a great one, guys. It's a great one. So it's by Albert Hubbard, who's an American author. He's a philosopher, so on and so forth. He says, the greatest mistake you can make in life is to be continually fearing you will make one. I'll say that again. The greatest mistake you can make in life is to be continually fearing you will make one. I take this from sports. There's this idea, there's this thing that a lot of people say in sports, after someone's been getting hurt a lot, they will say, well, if you focus on not getting hurt, you're actually going to hurt yourself because you're not being fluid in your actions. Sometimes if a guy comes back from a really tough injury like a torn Achilles or a torn ACL, they can start to be a little bit hesitant with what they do, how they plant their foot, things like that. And by doing that, they run the risk of hurting the other Achilles or the other ACL. So what you have to do is you have to just go out there and play. You have to go out there and let loose. It's the same thing with the fear of rejection. It's funny because I tell a lot of my clients this, or even the fear of failure. A lot of them would have this fear of failing, which stops them from doing a certain action. But then I stop and I ask them, well, by not doing the action, aren't you already failing? So let's talk about this. So by fearing getting on the phone and doing a sales call, you're already talking yourself out of making a potential sale. So you end up having the same amount of money you would have had if this person said no. Think about that. If you said, you know what, I'm not going to call these 10 or 20 people today, and I'm just going to go find some other busy work to do, right? Like you're going to leave the day with $0. Now, imagine if you got on the phone with 10 or 20 people, you called them, and they all said no. You would still have those $0, but you would have something even greater though. You would now know what it is that people are saying no to, or even why they're saying no to your sales offer. So now you have the ability to counteract that with new offers or new objection tactics, if you will. So it's something that you're going to learn that's going to help make you better. So there isn't really a loss here, if you will. There's not really something that you're losing, if you will. But if you don't take action, one could say that's even worse than failing or being rejected. So again, the greatest mistake you can make in life is to be continually fearing you will make one. And that's because when you do that, you will not take action. And that's from Albert Hubbard. So guys, those are the 6. I know I said 5, but those are the 6 anxiety quotes that if you follow them, they'll help you to stop worrying and overthinking. So what I want you to do is to replay this podcast, write down these quotes and save them, okay? Save these quotes so that way you will always have them. And I also told you guys some great books and that backwards law, okay? Remember the backwards law. Those things are things I would love for you guys to check out. So this is Coach Wells. What did you think about this podcast? What are your thoughts? Did you find value in this podcast? Do you feel as though some of these quotes really touched you? If so, let me know in the comments so that way I know. And you can go back and forth in the comments so I can get to know you a little bit better. All right, I'll see you later.